Hello, everybody. I'm going to look at the chart of Bill Gates. It's a very interesting chart, and we might just project forward to it possible things that can happen. And I'm also going to well, as you know, there'll be loads of juicy stuff anyhow. Now, I have to declare at the beginning of this that I'm not a Bill Gates fan. I don't approve of billionaires buying influence in global organizations like the WHO, the WEF, partnering with numerous vaccine initiatives, basically buying influence in world health to the effect that he is wielding an extraordinary amount of influence. Plus, he subsidizes the BBC, The Guardian, CBS. He's purchased control in so many different. He has a finger in many pies, and as a result, he's not being scrutinized. And because he has certain reputation as a genius and one of the world's richest men, politicians are far too acquiescing. They don't ask difficult questions. I feel they doff their hat to him, and it's like yes sir, no sir, three bags full sir. They need to grow a backbone. So I do think he needs to be held accountable. However, I don't want to give a biased reading of his chart, just because of my personal feelings. So in some instances, I'm going to quote directly from textbooks of what they say, so it's not really me just projecting my opinion onto this chart, right? So first of all, let's say he's born on the 28th of October 1955. He's a Scorpio. Obviously you can see here all his Scorpio planets: Sun, Venus, Saturn. He's got Cancer rising, 26 degrees of Cancer. It's the exact same degree of Cancer as Meghan Markle. And I do want to come back to that because it's particularly relevant to transits, because as you know, there was a Jupiter-Pluto conjunction right on his descendant, right on Meghan Markle's descendant. And as you know as well, Saturn is been there in the final degrees of Capricorn, heading into Aquarius. So Saturn is also on his descendant. Pluto's not far away. Jupiter's been in the vicinity, and these Pluto-Jupiter conjunctions are taking place right on his descendant. What does that mean? We'll come back to that. Now, people with Cancer rising, obviously there's business ability indicated because of the rulership of the moon. There's also there's a certain neediness when it comes to Cancer rising, a need for social acceptance, a need to be a savior in order to gain to be a messiah almost. And that's especially true in his, because the ruling planet, Cancer, being ruled by moon, the ruling planet is in Aries, right up there on the midheaven. So his life was destined to be in the public eye with a ruling 10th house and the ruling planet so close to the midheaven. Usually these people are very, very popular when the moon is at the eye, and I think for a large part of his life he was popular. At the moment, he can't go anywhere without getting slated on the social media clips. Now, the interesting thing that comes up again and again in his chart, partially through Venus conjunct Saturn in the 5th and Moon, is gain through being married to someone. So it sort of indicates his marriage to Melinda has had dividends. Now, how is Melinda connected? Who is she? I know Polly suggested there may be a link to Operation Paperclip. She's born in Dallas. I mean, that's not that far from New Mexico and all those, where the space program, all that sort of thing. So it suggests strongly in his chart that marriage has helped him gain power, advance, become more popular, gain a strategic advantage possibly. So who is Melinda? What are her connections? It's definitely a marriage somewhat of convenience. I don't say that there isn't some love there, because she is Leo and Scorpio is attracted to Leo. But I feel it's also very much a business partnership, this marriage. There's something to be gained there. So in terms of politics, there's a big suggestion with the moon on the cusp of the 10th there, that he will inherit the family business. Now, we know that his father was heavily involved in Planned Parenthood, and we know a lot of his policies are very closely linked to eugenics. He talks openly about population reduction, about the death panel, that sort of thing. So he's certainly taken on the ideas of his father. And here you see this very strong 4th house, the family dynasty. Now, we know his mother was very connected to the banking cartels. His father's connected. And let me just, if you don't believe me, let's look at this picture here for some evidence. There you go. Now, who do we have? There's Bill Gates Sr., the back there. Who else do we have here? We have George Soros, right there. We have Ted Turner, billionaire, CNN. We also have Anthony Fauci, Funny, he should be in this picture, isn't that so? We have Brooke Astor. Now, you might have remembered that I mentioned the Astor family are a key family in terms of the ruling cabal. They're right up there with the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Oppenheimers. Astor family very much connected in to the Christine Keeler affair and that whole Profumo scandal. If you would watch one of my videos on that, you'll see. In this picture is also David Rockefeller. He's behind here. Barbara Walters, he's hiding behind there. So here we've got Rockefeller, Bill Gates Sr., Ted Turner, Anthony Fauci, Irene Diamond, Leonore Annenberg. A picture of who's who, really, in the elite. So his father's very plugged in. So you see here the family dynasty. He comes from immense power, wealth. Look at the sun there in the 4th house in Scorpio. He wasn't just hatched out an egg as a spontaneous genius. I mean, he's well positioned. His family are well established, well placed. Neptune in the 4th, some skeletons in the closet, something dubious going on, but still. Okay, so another interesting thing, I'm going to quote from a book here. It says, when Moon, especially as ruling planet, is on the midheaven, it indicates a position of responsibility bestowed on you by someone in authority. So, who has a position of responsibility? Is this the Rothschilds, the banking elite, the Rockefellers? Who put him in authority? You see, he's been placed there. It's not just that he's grabbed this all for himself. Someone placed him there, gave him the tools, has helped him gain this position. So I thought that was quite an interesting notion. Moon being in Aries somewhat suggests a narcissistic personality, and yet I'm not going to say it's narcissistic because it's not enough on its own. It's impulsive, it's demanding. Moon in Aries is also highly inspired. It's a very competitive placement, has to win at all costs, must have its own way. I mean, Moon in Aries doesn't accept losing or playing second fiddle. It has to have its own way. You just see how determined he is with this whole vaccine thing. The Moon in Aries often feels entitled to be important. He's born with a sense of entitlement that he's going to assume this king-like role. A Moon in Aries cannot stand irrelevance. As I say, some of these things do suggest narcissism. What about Uranus, which is on the ascendant? See Uranus just in Leo on the ascendant there. It's very important, this. Now, Uranus on the ascendant does indicate genius, someone involved in innovation, someone who is alert, edgy, kind of hyperactive, quite revolutionary, very progressive ideas, a forward-thinking person involved in technology, innovation, and invention. I think that pretty much covers him. Often people with Uranus on the first house cusp like that are unusual in appearance. I'd say he is quite unusual. He's rather tall, and his father's exceptionally tall, and it says that with Uranus on the ascendant, people are usually very tall. So he's not as tall as his father, but he's fairly tall, and I'd say he has got something unusual about him. Now, with Uranus on the first house there, and also with Moon, which is opposite Mercury, there's great tension and anxiety, and you do see that. It comes across clearly in all his interviews. He's very edgy. He doesn't speak clearly. He's very jerky. He has these jerky hand movements. He's very restless. He's fidgeting. He's moving around. He gets very, very uncomfortable. He struggles to get out his words in a particularly eloquent way. Moon opposite Mercury often suggests these things. It suggests someone who has got so much going on in their head, but it's coming out all jumbled, and that they're not always particularly articulate. Sometimes they're a little childish in the way they use communication. And also, of course, with Uranus on the first, he comes over in a very erratic way. It's quite, like I say, quite hyperactive. Now, Uranus on the first is a very individualistic person, often involved in cutting-edge technology. I mean, he's involved in everything cutting-edge. He's involved in geoengineering. He's involved in the microchipping. He's involved in the whole technocracy, transhumanism. I mean, he's got a finger in all those pies. He was heavily involved in Epstein and with Epstein friends, and the association, I think, started in 2011, post-Epstein's prison problems. But he says he had nothing to do with the island or that side of it. It was all science-based. But we know Epstein's interested in those very same things, like eugenics and testing the limits of humanity and turning humans into machines, basically. So the interest is there. Uranus on the first indicates insights beyond the usual person. These people are usually pretty bright, and they do have that ability to laterally think, to just make conclusions a normal person wouldn't. They can envision things that no one normal person could. But on the other hand, is this a good thing? Because some of the things he's envisaging, I think, are anti-human and just too far out there. Uranus on the first, he's ahead of his time. He's very controversial, oh, that's for sure. Suffers from nervous tension. You can see that. I mean, he does. He's jumpy. He's all over the place. He can't give a straight answer to a question. He's very evasive, which you also get here. Moon opposite Mercury, extremely evasive. He's always passing the buck. He squirms. He don't want to be put on the spot about his vaccines, does he? There's also arrogance, and I'm quoting, so it's not just my opinion. Feels others should bow down to his superior intelligence. Oh my gosh, absolutely, doesn't he just? He does feel entitled to hold sway over everything. He's no doctor, he didn't even finish a college degree. We're just supposed to buy into the fact that he just knows it all and is the ultimate authority when it comes to vaccines, health, and God knows what else. Leaders in technology with revolutionary ideas. Isn't this amazing? I mean, tell you what, if you want to convince anyone that astrology works, just let them read all the details of the aspects in his chart and they're going to get it. Uranus in the first can be a bit of a crank, bit of an eccentric, bit of a weirdo, and I think a lot of people would probably see him that way. Now, if you guys remember my vlog, How to Marry a Billionaire, you'll know that I discussed aspects that are present in the charts of billionaires and Jupiter in Pluto, especially in the sign of Leo, in the second house, no less, the house of money and wealth and prosperity, bound to be a billionaire. Added to that particular Jupiter-Pluto conjunction is square Saturn in Scorpio, the sign of excess in the fifth house, the sign of invention, innovation, and also a money house. There's money all over this chart. Jupiter just shows extremes of wealth. When Jupiter is linked to Saturn, it always shows business ability as well. Plus, of course, he's ruled by Cancer. There's great business acumen here. It's not just that he can kind of invent stuff. He knows how to market it, to make it work. He knows how to sell it. Strong second house selling. Jupiter in the second house, ruling the sixth house, where Sagittarius rules the sixth, shows a link between his fortune and the pharmaceutical industry, the medical industry. So definitely there a link between health and earning money. Also a link there to the fourth house, which we'll come back to. So he has a great determination to make money. Yes, he did want to be a millionaire before he was 30. This shows intensity of focus, also greed, enormous resourcefulness. Pluto in the second, hugely resourceful, but there can always be a downfall. Wherever Pluto is, there's a chance of a fall, a major, major fall, right? Saturn in the fifth shows money to be made via speculating and via inventions. Okay, he's got the stellium in the fourth. I think this speaks to the family dynasty that he's a part of. Property, that suggests huge investments in property. I suppose that's going on there. Intellectual property, certainly. It does influence a certain power of his father over him, a father complex, a need to impress his father, a need to follow his father's footsteps. His father's very influential to him. This also indicates research. We know he's heavily involved in research. It indicates inheritance, not so much inheriting money, but inheriting kind of views from your parents. There's a strong bond to his family kind of ethos, his family thinking. And he's the strong fourth house influence. Well, he's interested in reshaping family and genes, which is our inheritance, our history, our kind of lineage is all linked to our genes, isn't it? Our genes is how we've evolved, and he's very interested in changing that. Hence Neptune in the fourth, if you want to look at things on a broader scale. What do all these fourth house planets mean? The power to change not only our future, but our past, where we've come from, because isn't our genes are exactly an embodiment of where we've come from, our evolution. He wants to change that with this mRNA vaccine. This indicates the powers of the elders. I would call that maybe the Illuminati, possibly. It also, Neptune in the fourth speaks to the hidden science. You know, I often speak of the fact that these very powerful, influential people who possibly link to what we could call a cabal or the Illuminati or something like that, have access to science that the ordinary person doesn't, a science that's been hidden over the centuries, which is only known in the upper ranks of the Freemasons, and that's where they get their power from. They've always got a head start on the average person because they have access to crucial knowledge that is not generally available, that's in fact suppressed. This is the knowledge that's been sort of contained within their ranks and why they keep power over us. They don't just keep power over us because of the Reserve Bank, because they control banking or whatever. They keep power because they have access to a secret knowledge that's been known for over 2,000 years, maybe even back to the pyramids. They understand the true nature of history, the true nature of reality, the true nature of where we come from. And that's why they have a head start, and they actively hide and suppress this information, possibly through like the burning of the library in Alexandria, things like that, all the documents that are squirreled away in the Vatican. Let's talk about the fact that his sun is conjunct Neptune, square Uranus on the 1st. This indicates a God complex, a kind of savior complex. He has great intuition, strong insight, a well-developed mind. He has peculiar yearnings. Well, I'd say eugenics and a lot of these science things are peculiar, right? So anyway, Neptune in Scorpio, the definition from the textbook could be exploitation of sex for commercial purposes. Not saying anything about him, but we know he's vaguely linked to Epstein. Yeah, okay, that's something in the chart. I'm not making any allegations, though. It could be nothing. It also indicates sexual proclivities. It indicates that he wants the power over life and death, right? Which is a quote from the textbook, but not from me. So a lot here I'm quoting from textbook descriptions of this particular Sun conjunct Venus in the 4th, square Uranus, being a very important planet on the 1st, right? So that's not coming from me particularly, because I'm trying to be unbiased here, but interesting what it has to say. I'm even wondering about a connection to aliens. I'm just going to throw that out there. You never know, and I don't think we should rule anything out. Now, because Uranus is square Neptune in the 4th house of sedition, he may be promoting social turmoil. There's also kind of a hint that within his family there were upsetting, peculiar circumstances, and maybe that's why he has such a twisted, warped worldview. It may be linked to his upbringing, his family, his very early emotional attachments. There was something peculiar, very upsetting, that shaped him. Okay, we know he's drawn to secrecy, so, you know, Epstein, the Maxwells. He's quite involved in sponsoring Christine Maxwell, the older sister of Ghislaine. He sponsored her in her early career in the 90s, developing an email platform, data platform. So he was heavily involved, along with his partner Steve Allen, with Ghislaine's sister, that she went on to form the basis of, she went on to form a kind of email template that become the basis of Hotmail, which is currently embedded in Google, in McAfee, and all sorts of applications, and possibly provides a backdoor into your email if you're using those services, which again brings us to the whole spying thing. You know, Neptune in the 4th, well, there's always something secretive going on, something underhand, something bubbling under the surface. So, you know, we know Gates is tied to all sorts of secretive things going on, don't we? There's often impractical idealism, and again an association with the occult. We know he's interested in Marina Abramovich. We saw he had her front one of his major advertising campaigns. So he's not steering away from the occult. He's absolutely embracing it, obviously sees the value in it. Uranus-Neptune square, particularly when linked to the Sun, when linked to the ascendant, means involvement in secret society. So again, we have the Freemason link. I talked about Moon opposite Mercury in Libra, this nervousness. He talks too much. He's a bit of a gossip. He is not discreet. No one can tell him a secret. He'll blurt it out. He's really bad at keeping secrets, and he doesn't know when he's saying the wrong thing. I think that's clear from his interviews now. Often people with Moon opposite Mercury, they blurt things out. It's a sort of person that says all the wrong things, gets themselves into trouble, betrays trust and secret, not always meaning to, but because they gossip, and they don't know when to keep quiet. They don't know the value of staying silent and not saying anything. They always say too much, right? And isn't he saying too much? He can't get himself off TV stations and radio stations, and every time he speaks, he's looking more dodgy, and his PR is shit. You know, it can mean evasiveness and also lying. It can mean he's sometimes quite illogical. Mercury conjunct Mars, especially in an air sign, generally involves someone who's pretty bright, quick-witted, good with numbers, good with maths, clever, okay? Sun in Scorpio in the 4th, again, we have a hint of the occult. His transformative power, his desire to be revolutionary, to push forward progressive and revolutionary concepts. The desire for power as well, power hungry, the need for excess going to extremes and a lack of moderation. He also is probably interested in living forever. Do you know that a lot of Scorpios, there's Chris Barnard, who was the heart surgeon, did the first heart transplants in South Africa, was a Scorpio. He said that aging was a disease. He was totally against aging. He was looking for ways to live forever. Gary Player, another Scorpio, famous South African golfer, absolutely obsessed with health and diet and staying young. Scorpio often have an obsession with youth, and I think he's probably got an obsession with life extension, an interest I'm sure he shared with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, importantly, I'd like to return to the ascendant, which, as I say, Meghan Markle and him both have an ascendant in Cancer, 26 degrees. The asteroid Procyon is on that degree. It's on 25 degrees. Procyon has the qualities of Mercury and Mars. So it again emphasizes this kind of intelligence, quick-wittedness, desire to communicate, very opinionated, as you say, all sorts of things about Meghan Markle as well. Now, I'm interested to know, because the symbolism there is death, or at least injury by dog bites. So I wonder, is Bill Gates a fan of dogs at all? Meghan seems to have a dog, but there's the danger of dog bites. Just mentioning that. It also indicates an immeasurable degree of pride, and that pride will be their downfall. Okay, so you can ruminate on that one. Also, the other asteroid, Cambalia, is conjunct his sun being at 5 degrees of Scorpio. Cambalia is about 3 degrees of Scorpio. Cambalia, again, is the essence of Mercury plus Mars, bringing an emphasis here to his intelligence and desire to communicate again. Cambalia exaggerates. It causes people to be argumentative and unscrupulous. The people can be extremely inventive. They can have mechanical ability, but can be very unreliable. There's often secret knowledge, access to secret knowledge. Strangely enough, the name Cambalia has its roots in Old Coptic, and the root to the name is very similar to the root for the name swastika. Interesting. I should just mention Venus conjunct Saturn. We can talk about his long and stable relationship with Melinda. It's probably quite a strong relationship, a business-orientated relationship, a true partnership in that they share goals there. It also indicates an absolute ambition for money. Loyalty, he's loyal to her. Does that mean he doesn't have affairs? Well, not necessarily. I mean, I wouldn't rule that out for any man, actually. But he's loyal in terms of they'll keep that marriage going, because it's partly a business thing as well. It could have been an arranged marriage, strangely enough. Let's have a look. Now, I talked about the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction that's been happening on his descendant. Now, we know that Bill Gates and Meghan Markle have had a PR disaster. Everything they've done since January, when this conjunction was building up, has been a disaster. Every time Bill Gates is in public, he's saying things which are damaging his cause, his aims. He's becoming a liability to himself, to his projects, or to whoever is handling him, if he's being handled, which we presume he might be being handled by other forces, the Rothschilds. We could think that. So both of them have been an absolute PR disaster. So Jupiter-Pluto, pride comes before a fall. They're both, the excessive pride they have as a result of Procyon on that ascendant is causing them to make mistake after mistake in terms of their PR, and they just won't stop making these mistakes. Pluto on the descendant shows that they are both making powerful enemies. They are both damaging their prospects. They are associating with people who will lead to their downfall. All right, that's what I'm getting from the chart. Okay. Solar arc Sun, which I'm just looking, is over here. It's moved to sort of 11 degrees of Capricorn. It's square Mars. Uranus is extremely active. So Uranus, which is now in Taurus, let's see, where is Taurus? Taurus is up here. It's around about 10 degrees of Taurus. It's very active in his chart because it has been opposing the Sun. And it's also, let's see, and also here, here's solar arc Uranus, which is currently opposite the moon, not quite opposite Mars, but solar arc Uranus is kind of aggravating this moon opposite Mars. Now, because moon rules the first house, and moon is often associated with health, I'm immediately thinking something to do with health. And when moon is opposite Mars, sometimes it's something to do with inflammation. Okay, so I'm thinking this, we're going to come back to it. And we know that here Mercury is opposite moon, and all these planets are afflicted by Mars at birth, and Uranus is afflicted at birth by Neptune. So Solar arc Uranus is not then therefore not necessarily going to be a positive effect when it triggers this opposition. Okay, a moon opposite Mars is often a kind of detrimental aspect. Okay, so I said we had solar arc. Sun is square Mars. Mars is in the 4th, as we can see. It rules the 10th of reputation, and of course his reputation is certainly under attack, right? And the Sun is negatively aspected by natally, therefore by solar arc it can cause problems, hence the damage to his reputation, possible downfall. We also have solar arc Mars will conjunct his node. There's solar arc Mars, it will conjunct his node in about 3 years. That often is indicative of something to do with accident, violence, or some sort of inflammation, or something to do with the head. Every time there's Mars, it's something to do with inflammation in the head in terms of a health issue, possibly. Okay, we have Jupiter. Here's solar arc Jupiter, which is 2 years away from a conjunction with the Sun, and it's currently conjuncting Neptune. Neptune, I talked about all the links with Neptune, secret societies, secrecy, all that. So something that he's doing that's supposed to be secret is very much coming to light. But Jupiter being in the 2nd house, this shows that this project has long been in the making. This is a kind of culmination. So as Jupiter moves towards the Sun, it's a culmination. But will it be a successful culmination or an absolute downfall? So we talked about solar arc Uranus opposite the Moon, which is on the midheaven. So again, Uranus linked to a planet on the midheaven often means a crash in terms of your reputation, a sudden change in the way you're perceived by the public, a sudden fall from grace, and I think we can basically see all that's happening. Pluto, very important. Here we've got solar arc Pluto conjunct the Sun. That'll be conjunct the Sun in 2 years. This is massive ambition. Again, here is the sense of culmination. Pluto is his ruling planet, being a Scorpio, conjuncting the Sun. This is a powerful, powerful time in his life, but the most dangerous time for him because it could lead to his destruction. So Pluto is the sign of power. It's also the sign of death. Not always a physical death, but could it be the death of a project going down in ruins? Okay. We see also here Chiron, often called Chiron by me, and I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. Chiron is conjunct the Moon. I'm sorry you can't see that. It's right at the top of the chart. There we go. Solar arc Chiron is conjunct the Moon. Chiron, again, linked to health. Moon, ruling the ascendant, often linked to health. Moon in Aries opposite Mars, linked to the head. So Sun and Moon, of course, being afflicted at birth. And Sun and Moon are heavily involved in all these transits and solar arcs, leading me to say that this is going to be a very significant time in his life. A culmination, but not necessarily a successful one. So I saw an article. Now, when I looked at those transits, I thought to myself, does this mean Alzheimer's? And I believe in a 2018 article, his father had developed Alzheimer's, and Bill Gates said he was very scared of developing it. So it does kind of, his father has it. It's just those transits made me wonder. Now, this is not my opinion. That was my feeling, my intuition. Then I went to the Oxford Astrologer website, and they indicated that as soon as Mars and Mercury involved, and here as you've got them circled, they're both in aspect to the Moon, which is being triggered. They're both being triggered by Uranus, which is also linked to health, being in the 1st house, health and well-being. They're being triggered. This often relates to Alzheimer's, particularly because Mars rules iron and Mercury rules aluminium, which are both factors in Alzheimer's. Other than that, there are 2 asteroids. One of them is called, one of them is called Hypnos, and the other one is called Orcus. Now, in Bill Gates's natal chart, Hypnos is right on the ascendant, and right now, Hypnos is solar arcing these planets. Right. So Hypnos was, according to the Oxford Astrologer, frequently present when Alzheimer's was developing in someone. So Hypnos has to be present significantly natally, which it is, being on the ascendant in Bill Gates, and it has to be present by transit or secondary progression or solar arc, which it is, conjuncting this, setting off this particular natal arrangement. Also is the asteroid Orcus. Now, unfortunately, I don't have Orcus on here. I don't know what happened to my depiction of Orcus, where it went, but Orcus was also active. I'll put a note on this chart just to say about Orcus being active. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this chart. I don't know. See what you think. I feel he's reaching a culmination, but not necessarily a successful one. I think there could be a lot of karma involved. I feel you can already see the signs that in terms of PR, things aren't going well. And I think this whole thing is going to come crashing down around him. Just when he felt with this Pluto approaching the sun, that this was going to be his ultimate power grab, because he does have this savior, this messiah complex. Just as he thought this was going to be his ultimate power grab, something he's always wanted. He's got all the chess pieces in place. He thinks it's going to be checkmate, but something's going to happen. And something has happened. People are waking up. In many ways, he's his own worst enemy, the way he reacts in interviews, etc. And it all could come crashing down. And I say there could be some sort of health thing going on which undermines his capacity to carry out this plan, which could be what I've talked about. Look, I don't like to give predictions on people's health. I don't know if that's necessarily something you should do. So, but it's something I looked at, I saw in the chart, it's in there on the website Oxford Astrologer. So I'm just putting it out to you. As I said, I have my opinions, but frequently during this broadcast, I read you quotes from texts that are more partial than I'm going to be, because they were written a very long time ago before anyone knew anything about Gates. So, okay, guys, whew, that was interesting. I'm still planning to do lots of lives, but I just wanted to get some of these chart readings out the way. They're very interesting for all you true fans of astrology as well.